The rules are made by yourselves, and they must be observed by yourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from the onset, let me clarify this, that I am here as a messenger. I want you to get this. I am here as a messenger of the Commission. The other person who will have moved is the Speaker. The other person who will have moved is the Speaker, who is the chairman of the Commission, and the Speaker can't come here, and therefore I'm doing it on his behalf. Mr. Speaker, the mandate of the Parliamentary Service Commission, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 127(1) of the Constitution, among others, is to provide services and facilities to the members and staff for the efficient and effective running of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Article 127 of the Constitution, 6, provides the mandate of the Commission as providing services and facilities to ensure the efficient and effective functioning of Parliament, B, constituting office in the parliamentary service and appointing and supervising office holders, C, preparing annual estimates of expenditure of the parliamentary service and submitting them to the National Assembly for approval and exercising budgetary control over the service. D, Mr. Speaker, undertaking singly or jointly with other relevant organizations.
Order, honorable members. Order, honorable Kainan. Order. Order, honorable members. Order. Will the honorable members on their feet take their seats? Order, honorable members. Order. We shall hear the honorable Kainan in silence.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to request the members. I am the messenger on behalf of the Commission, on behalf of the Speaker, who is the chairman. Mr. Speaker, don't hit the messenger, go for the message. Mr. Speaker, C is performing other functions necessary for the well-being of the members and staff of Parliament, or as prescribed by national legislation. Mr. Speaker, Article 127(2) and 3 provides for the composition of the Commission. Mr. Speaker, the chairman is the Honorable Moses Wetangula, the Speaker of the National Assembly. The vice is the Honorable Naomi Shaban, the Honorable George Kaniri, yours truly, the Honorable Aaron Cheriot, the Honorable Ben Mumanye, the Honorable Rachel Ameso, and Jeremiah Nyegenye, who is the Clerk of the Senate and Secretary to the Commission. Mr. Speaker, the recruitment of the position of the Clerk, Mr. Speaker of the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, the position of the Clerk of a House is an office in the Parliamentary Service Commission established under Article 128 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, the immediate former Clerk of the National Assembly, Mr. Michael Sialai, who is our High Commissioner to Namibia, was appointed on 27 March 2017, having served in various ranks in the service. Mr. Speaker, the retirement age of our staff in the Parliamentary Service Commission is 60 years, and Michael Sialai was due to retire on 25th May 2021, having attained the age of 60 years. However, Mr. Speaker, on 4th May 2021, the National Assembly considered a report from the Parliamentary Service Commission and resolved as follows. Pursuant to the provisions of Article 127(6)(b) and Article 128(1) of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, in furtherance of the resolution of the Parliamentary Service Commission of 7th April 2021, this House approved the appointment of Michael Sialai as a Clerk of the National Assembly on contractual terms, Mr. Speaker, with effect from 26 May 2021 and ended on 31st July 2022, barely some few days, Mr. Speaker, before the election. C, Mr. Speaker, calls upon the Commission to commence the process of recruiting a new clerk of the National Assembly not later than
Order, honorable members, order.
February 2022, so as to ensure a smooth and seamless transition, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, due to the impending end of the contract of the incumbent, Mr. Michael Selai, on 31st July 2022, as well as the resolution of the Assembly to commence the process, and Mr. Speaker, I want to emphasize, this was the resolution of this very House, Mr. Speaker, to commence the recruitment of the new clerk not later than February 2022, so as to ensure a smooth and seamless transition. The Parliamentary Service Commission advertised for the position of the clerk of the National Assembly in 2 dailies, Mr. Speaker, 2 daily newspapers with a national circulation, that is the Nation newspaper and the Standard newspaper, and the website of the Parliamentary Service Commission on February 4th, February 2022. A copy of the advertisement, Mr. Speaker, is attached. The closing date, Mr. Speaker, of the application was 21st February 2022.
Order. Order, honorable members. Order. Order, Honorable Faith Gitao and your team. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, order. Honorable Osoro, you are the whip. Can you take your seats? Honorable members, will all the honorable members on their feet take their seats? Honorable Muriungi, you are out of order to be walking across the House while the Speaker is on his feet. Honorable members, order. I want to invite you, honorable members, to acquaint yourselves with the Standing Order 107A. Order, honorable members. The Honorable Woman Rep for Mombasa. The Honorable Woman Rep for Mombasa. I see that again, and I will tell you to stay out until the end of the day. And being a first-timer, it is not very encouraging for you to do what you are doing. Honorable members have told you very clearly. Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members, particularly our new members, need to learn from the older members. But when you see, you know, when I sit here and I see veterans like the Honorable Mbandi, keeping a stoic silence and struggling to listen, and new members who ought to be learning the ropes of how to debate in this House are doing what I saw the member from Mombasa County do, is very wrong. I want to encourage you members. Everybody has an opinion on every matter. Matters in this House are resolved through a vote. And each one of you has the power, the capacity, and the right to vote the way you want. Once the matter is debated, you will vote. The majority will always have their way, the minority must have their say. But we are not going to have a market situation being brought to this House. I want to encourage you, and as your Speaker, I would want to exercise a Standing Order 107A as a last resort. I've been in this House for many, many years. I have never been sent out even for a minute. And I want to encourage you members to watch the conduct of the veterans, like John Bad here, whom have been in this House for many, many years. He has normally got very strong opinions, but he restrains them because he knows his power lies in his vote. And I want all of us to be like that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the terms of service and requirements for the position of the Clerk of the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, the advertisement indicated that the applications were invited from energetic and result-oriented individuals, Mr. Speaker, interested in serving the position of the Clerk of the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, at PSC Scale 17 in the parliamentary service for a term of 5 years with eligibility for reappointment, Mr. Speaker, for one term of another 5 years, which means this position is a contractual. 5 years, you do well, you can be reappointed for another 5 years, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the duties and responsibilities. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. Having been around for many years, Mr. Speaker, in this particular parliament, we should count ourselves lucky because once upon a time, this particular process we are about to undertake, Mr. Speaker, used to be the preserve of the Parliament of the Public Service Commission, Mr. Speaker, and I know me and you, we have been here for many years. We used to have and benefit from the services of special DOs who used to be seconded to this parliament as clerks. Luckily today, the power of appointing your clerk lies with you. This is why at the end of this process, you will exercise your right as a member of parliament, either support or reject, and please exercise that when the time comes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the duties and responsibilities of the clerk, Mr. Speaker, the administrative function is the day-to-day management and the functioning of the National Assembly. 2, the execution of the Commission's decision relating to the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, because we have a bicameral house, we have the Senate, we have the National Assembly, and we have a joint service, Mr. Speaker, and therefore, the work of this particular clerk will be to manage all issues relating to the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. 3, the overall management of the staff of the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 128(2) of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Among these issues, actually, Mr. Speaker, includes the appointments, promotions, and discipline of staff of the National Assembly. 2, assignment of duties, supervision, and training of staff of the National Assembly. 3, deployment of staff, Mr. Speaker, of the respective clerks to serve in any of the areas in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. 4, preparation and submission of the programs necessary for the achievement of the mandate of the Commission. And 5, performing any other duty as may be assigned, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the procedural functions, rendering expertise and non-partisan and impartial advice to the members of Parliament, members of the National Assembly, on legislative process and parliamentary procedures and practice, Mr. Speaker. That is another core function of the clerk, Mr. Speaker. Also carrying out such other duties and exercising powers as may be conferred on him or her by law or by the standing orders and practices of the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, requirements for one to be a clerk: one had to be a citizen of the Republic of Kenya, one had to hold a degree from a recognized university in Kenya, one at least must have a 10 years experience, one must have demonstrated flair and good understanding of the parliamentary practice, and 5, meets the requirements of the Leadership Integrity Act as prescribed under Chapter 6 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the advertisement further required application must include cover letters from institutions like the Ethics and Anti-Corruption, the Directorate of CID, Kenya Revenue Authority, the Credit Reference Bureau, the Higher Education Loans Board, Mr. Speaker, and the applications were to be addressed to the Secretary of the Commission, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and delivered during the office hours to the head of the Commission Secretariat, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a result of this advert, over 48 Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, applied for this particular position. And Mr. Speaker, through the shortlisting, 4 individuals were shortlisted, Mr. Speaker. The first was Samuel Josephat Njoroge. 2 was Muhammad Ali Muhammad. 3 was Eunice Wanjiku Kichangi, and 4 was Sarah Kioko. Mr. Speaker, the publication of the long list and the short list and the interview notice was also given. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the Commission carried out oral interviews. And out of these oral interviews, Mr. Speaker, individuals were scored, and I've already stated actually the Commission under your chairmanship went through the shortlisted, invited the shortlisted individuals, took them through the interview, Mr. Speaker, on the following methodology for assessment, Mr. Speaker. The first one was academic qualifications. The second was technical proficiency. The third was leadership and administrative experience. The fourth was general knowledge and current affairs. And the fifth, presentational skills and demeanor. And Mr. Speaker, out of this, and Mr. Speaker, I will say this. The Parliamentary Service Commission, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to the 2010 Constitution, Mr. Speaker, is one of the Chapter 15 Constitutional Commission, Mr. Speaker, and this is as a result of what the framers of the current Constitution actually had in mind when they thought of separations of one of the key institutions, actually, Mr. Speaker, in our governance structure, that's the legislature, in having its own commission, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a result of this, we have come up with a number of legislations, and I want really my colleagues to listen to this. We have the Parliamentary Service Act, Mr. Speaker, which is a product of this House. And that particular bill, that particular act, was a bill that I moved, and when I was moving, Mr. Speaker, and today is in use, the whole House, the whole outside there, everybody was up in arms, but today, luckily, is one of the key acts of Parliament that we use for our day-to-day operations, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, equally, we also have the National Honors Act, Mr. Speaker, which again, US truly moved, and today is one of the acts again at our disposal, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a result of this, the individuals who are graded, Samuel Njoroge, Mr. Speaker, got, and I'm sure you have this, 87.14. Muhammad Ali got 76.79. Eunice Wanjiku Kichangi got 76.43. Sarah got 75.18, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, based on the foregoing, the Parliamentary Service Commission resolved to have Samuel Njoroge to be appointed to the position of the Clerk of the National Assembly for a term of 5 years. It's contractual. It's 5 years. It's not permanent and pensionable. 5 years. If he performs well, Mr. Speaker, he is eligible for another 5 years, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, pursuant to this, pursuant to Article 128(1) of the Constitution, Samuel Josephat Njoroge is being recommended to the National Assembly for approval as the Clerk of the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, the question is, what happens? The person who was holding this office.
Order, Honorable Kainan, there's a point of order from the Honorable Makali Mulu. Yes, Honorable Makali.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we are discussing a very important report, and we've not seen this report, Honorable Speaker. May I seek for your indulgence that we get this report so that we can make reference to the report? Thank you, Mr.
Clerk,
Speaker.
can you circulate the report? You said it will be. I'm told the report is available, Honorable Makali. Kainan.
Mr. Speaker, at the time of this, if you look at the structure, Mr. Speaker, of the Parliamentary Service Commission, I mean the structure of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, as a bicameral house, the Senate has its own clerk. The clerk of the Senate has 2 deputies. Equally, the clerk of the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, has 2 deputies. And therefore, the person who was acting in the position of the clerk reverts back to the original position of being deputy clerk. And therefore, that person has not been sacked, or that person has not been suspended. That person continues to be part of the Parliamentary Service, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, by a copy of the application letter, the job application forms, a curriculum vitae of Samuel Njoroge are in circulation, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, the Commission, pursuant to the provision of Article 128(1) of the Constitution of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly notes the reports of the Commission and approves the appointment of Samuel Josephat Njoroge as the Clerk of the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this report is signed by none other than the Right Honorable Senator Moses Wetangula, EGH MP, Speaker of the National Assembly, and Chairman of the commission, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, before I move this, I really want to appeal to the members that the 4 individuals who were interviewed are all competent, highly qualified, but out of the interview, out of the due process, Josephat Njoroge emerged the best, and I really want to appeal to you to support him. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move this and ask the Honorable Chepkonga, Samuel Chepkonga, to second, if he's around.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to second this motion. Mr. Speaker, as you know, I was a commissioner with Parliamentary Service Commission as an independent commissioner representing the people. This process, Mr. Speaker, of recruitment of the clerk of the National Assembly was begun during my tenure before I resigned to go and compete to become the Member of Parliament for Ainabkwe constituency. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would not want to repeat what the Honorable Keinan has said.
Order, Honorable Mawade. I see you are extremely mobile in the House.
There are people who are campaigning here, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable Mawade.
Mr. Speaker.
Member
You know, this is not a campaigning chamber. This is a debating chamber, Speaker.
Honorable Mawade, I have noticed you are extremely mobile in the House.
Absolutely.
And you are disturbing the tranquility of the House. I order you to take your seat.
Mr. Speaker, can I request you, would I be in order that you invoke standing order number 106A against Honorable Mawade, who is interfering with this side of the House? He's supposed to be sitting on the other side.
To second the motion.
Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, he's not a pastoralist. You know he's not a pastoralist, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know this House donated to the Parliamentary Service Commission the process of recruitment of a clerk.
Chepkonga. Yes, Honorable Senior Counsel Tienda Molo. Give Honorable Tienda Molo the mic.
Give me an. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt, and I did not intend to interrupt the Honorable Chepkonga, who I know very well as a senior standing member. But, Mr. Speaker, there is a matter that is disturbing my conscience. Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt on your impartiality and that you can dispassionately remove yourself from a report that you have signed recommending. But, Mr. Speaker, is it in order for you, having signed for the PSC, to preside over this debate? Wouldn't it perhaps be better to allow space for your deputy or somebody else to listen to the members ventilating, so that we do not get to a situation, Mr. Speaker, where some members, not knowing the standing orders, might start attacking the person who made the recommendation, not knowing that now here you are sitting as Speaker, not as the Chair of PSC. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Chepkonga, the Chair is studiously impartial. The Chair has no vote in this House, and at the end of the debate, you will cast your vote without any reference to the Chair. I see absolutely no problem whatsoever, howsoever. Carry on, Chepkonga.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I know, you know, the Honorable Tienda Molo, Mr. Speaker, was the chairman of the Ombudsman. So, you know, he's been dealing with issues of conflict of interest. There's no conflict of interest here, Mr. Speaker. You are the chairman of Parliamentary Service Commission. You are the Speaker of this House. And you have a right to preside over this House. As long as the Constitution has donated that power to you, we cannot impeach you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know, Article 27 of the Constitution provides that women and men have the right to equal treatment, including the right to equal opportunities in political, economic, cultural, and social spheres, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Njoroge, who has been proposed here, Mr. Speaker, has the right to participate in this particular process. Mr. Speaker, Article 232 of the Constitution, which has not been mentioned in this report, which is extremely very important, Mr. Speaker, and I wish to refer to it. Article 232 of the Constitution, paragraph G, states as follows, Mr. Speaker: subject to paragraphs H and I, fair competition and merit as the basis of appointments and promotion, Mr. Speaker, in the public service. The only way you can have merit and competition exercised in this House, Mr. Speaker, is what you have done. You have graded people, you have given them marks. Mr. Speaker, however much we may disagree with the manner in which you have conducted it, Mr. Speaker, it is your exclusive preserve to have done it in the manner in which you did, which is in accordance with the law and in accordance with the Constitution. So, Mr. Speaker, as far as I'm concerned, and being a former commissioner, this is something that we used to do. We did it in the past. We brought this to the House. The House has approved because they have respected that members of this House were donated to the Parliamentary Service Commission to conduct that work. Just like, Mr. Speaker, we are sitting in this House on behalf of the 50 million Kenyans who are outside there. All of them deserve to be here, Mr. Speaker, sir. The reason why we are here, we were elected. The reason why you sit in the Parliamentary Service Commission, Mr. Speaker, including the Honorable Kenan, they were elected in this House. There is nothing untoward which they have done so that we can impeach their report, Mr. Speaker, sir. We can totally disagree with what they have done, but we must respect the product of the resolution of the Commission, Mr. Speaker. Unless somebody has anything that borders on fraud, borders on conspiracy, borders on collusion. But as far as we are concerned, Mr. Speaker, speaking as a lawyer myself, we follow the law. The law has given you the power, has donated the power to you from these members. You have conducted an interview. You have given us the product of that interview, Mr. Speaker. And we are here to approve that particular product, Mr. Speaker. We may disagree. We may disagree with whether it should have been red, it should have been green, should have been yellow. That is preference, Mr. Speaker. That has nothing to do with the law. We may not like the law, but we must follow the law because we believe in the rule of law, Mr. Speaker, sir. And everybody has a right to be heard. In fact, Mr. Speaker, you have made a very good ruling, except that some people are still campaigning here, Mr. Speaker. You know, they are not listening and they would want to vote. It is important they listen to what the law says. And so, Mr. Speaker, I just like to say that the product of the Parliamentary Service Commission must be supported. And I therefore second. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Order. Order, honorable members. I now propose the question, which is that taking into consideration the recommendations of the Parliamentary Service Commission in its report on the recruitment of the Clerk of the National Assembly, laid on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 1st November 2022, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 128(1) of the Constitution, this House approves the appointment of Mr. Samuel Njoroge as the Clerk of the National Assembly. Is that what you want? Yes. Do I put the question? Yes. Will as many of the opinion that I put the question say aye? Aye. Will those who prefer to have a debate say nay? Nay. Now the ayes have it. I now put the question. Order, honorable members. I now put the question that taking into consideration the recommendations of the Parliamentary Service Commission in its report on the recruitment of the Clerk of the National Assembly, laid on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 1st November 2022, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 128(1) of the Constitution, this House approves the appointment of Mr. Samuel Njoroge as the Clerk of the National Assembly. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say nay. Nay. That it is the order. It is difficult to discern. I will put the question again. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Order, honorable members, order. You don't have to continue standing. You have the requisite number to have a division. Order. You have enough numbers to have a division. So we'll have a roll call vote. You may take your seats. You may take your seats. Order, honorable members. Order. We will have an electronic voting. You all have your cards. Log in, and you will, in how many minutes? Can we have the bell ring for the next 5 minutes?